So the planning of this was not an accident at all. We went from half in the mountain to fully in the mountain today. Today is a humdinger of a session, and you're going to learn stuff by the end of this session that you simply don't know. And why don't you know this stuff? Because it's not glamorous. So we're going to talk about not glamorous. Let's just start right out. No, let's not start right out. Because along with not glamorous, I also want to tell you a few other reasons you don't know. So if you're just translating, as I was talking to you about last week, this guy who translates good in Chinese, good in English, thinks that he's an expert in the tea industry because he's a good translator. You could ask this guy, hey, what's not glamorous about teas in the Wuyi Mountains? He'll have no idea what you're talking about. Most of the people in the tea industry don't really know what you're going to hear today. They just simply don't know it. And here in the States, for sure they don't know it, even in China, unless you're deep in the tea industry or you're an academic. Do you know this? So what is this thing that's not glamorous? Well, how about clusters of vegetables? Now, when you sit down for dinner and you have a cluster of vegetables on your plate, is that usually the thing you gravitate towards? Is it usually aesthetically the thing that you're going to attack right away? Many times you attack it right away because look at that glamorous steak right next to it. Let me get this unglamorous stuff off so that I can have mouth-watering, glamorous, or whatever it is. I'm not kidding when I talk about clusters of vegetables. So what am I referring to when we're talking about the Wuyi Mountains? They have a term for leaves, particularly within the mountain. Let's back up a minute. What's within the mountain? 7.7 square kilometer, beautiful, best tasting tea area in the Wuyi Mountains. 50 true home. So when they talk about vegetables there, they have a term, cai cha. This term, cai, technically refers to vegetables. And yet, what it refers to are wild bunches of tea. You know, lots of people have had theories over the years about our tea shop. And you hear those theories whispered. Sometimes you hear the questions out loud. Oh, don't you have just vintages in here? Oh, aren't you just making up names? Answer to all of that is you got it all wrong. Here today is the key to understanding what we do at this tea shop. Over the years, farmers have collected these wild bunches of tea leaves. They grow wildly. They are propagated by, they're naturally hybridized. Unlike the man-made stuff, this has occurred over the years. They're not self-propagated. Okay, so now we have to do a little botany. I hate it that we have to do this science so early because you're probably not yet awake. We'll do more complicated science a little bit later. But this, in a simple way of saying it, is you have one plant impregnating, and I know that's the wrong scientific term. However, you catch the point, another tea plant. And then you have seeds, and these clusters grow from these seeds. This is the heart of Wuyi tea. It always has been. And anybody who tells you otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. This is where the new varietals over the years, I've mentioned before that there's somewhere in the area of between 150 to 900 different varietals in the Wuyi Mountains. Now, that range is so big, it's laughable, isn't it? Why have I given you a laughable range? Let's go to the history behind this. The Tea Institute that studies the Wuyi Mountains has collected over the years 1,000 different vegetal clusters. Not very glamorous. I'll tell you what, this is where all the new varietals. And are they new? No, they've been self-propagated over the years. We just don't understand them. Have the farmers used these before in their cliff teas? The answer is absolutely they have. Have they given names to these? Absolutely they have given names. Do these names resemble anything that you see on the market? Absolutely not, for the most part. Over the years, some of these names have bled into the market, but there's so little of each of these clumps of tea that it isn't widespread. So the Research Institute, which has collected these, has arrived from these 70 that they have classified officially and semi-named officially, but they're still working on the others. We got more history to come. And actually in this shop, that history is already in here because we have some of those clusters obviously done in a finished form in here. So this is the thing nobody will tell you because they don't know. And this is the reason when we talk about scope and context here, at the end of the day, this is really what I'm talking about. When they name these things, how do they name them? Bunch of different ways. Whether it's the farmer or the research institute, they look at shape of leaf. They'll look at when it actually comes to bud, time frame. They'll look at fragrance. They look at location within the mountain. They look at all these factors and just pick names. Sometimes when they're in a big hurry, they just pick a number. So this is why there's confusion about the names. Remember, when I do names, when we do names in here, no numbers. We don't use numbers. Inconvenient, hard to remember. We do use descriptors that point back either to history or point back to flavor or something special about the tea itself. So let's back up a bit because let's do some more contexting here. So there was a description written about all these experts and people studying the cliff teas. One of the head people of the institutes prepared 10 of them and said, okay, tell me what I served you. Did any of those experts, and now we're talking, Chinese experts, not experts with this type of face, experts that live in China, experts that study the tea, did any single one of them get 100%? The answer is no. not one of them. And so, again, these tell you how small the sample group is. In other words, if you're drinking something year by year, oh, these experts are really good. We've sat with these experts and we've actually tried to trick them. Oh, try this tea. They try it. This from this place, this village, probably this farmer. Every single time. But when you get to within the mountain, these vegetal clusters can't do it because it's not widely spread enough. 1,000 of these clusters in their possession, and they're not all in the market. Yes.
You've spoken of wild tea plants in Yunnan province.
Yes.
And wild tea trees and the land where they're growing. So do you know whether there's anything different about where the self-propagating, apparently, when you say wild, self-propagating plants in the mountain, the Wuyi Mountains, anything different that we know so far about their terroir, or is it just all over the map because they're scattered here and there?
This is a great question. And the questioner is linking it to ancient tree, self-propagated in Yunnan. And we know that those are all ipso facto different genomically, right? And so the question really is about, is the terroir and is what I'm referring to genomically differently? Let's answer the easy one first. The easy one, it's absolutely genomically differently. And by the way, that's why there's so many of these that are still unclassified, because they got to do the testing. You know, it's not like you can just bring a cluster into the lab. Hey, sequence this thing, please, and tell me whether it matches any of the other sequenced plants. The answer is that takes a long time. And if you're trying to compare it to other plants, that means you have to have those other ones all sequenced as well. So from that perspective, when I talk about vegetal clusters, they're genomically different. The question about terroir is much more complicated. And it's complicated because remembering within that 7.7 square kilometer area, there is one thing we know about the entire area. Everywhere in that area tends to have more of the volcanic soil broken up than once you leave that area. So there is the probability, but not the exactitude. In other words, you can't ask me, well, you can ask me anything you want. But I'm not going to be able to say, well, in this area, it has a 9.8% minerality versus this other area, which is 13.2%. And yet, that's part of the reality within that 7.7 square kilometer. All heavily mineral, but within that area, remembering there are caves, there are cliffs, you have shade, you have direction, you have all these at fog, some places heavily fogged up, some places not. So from that terroir perspective, the microclimates are considerably smaller, and therefore it's harder to answer your question in exactitude. But for an overall picture, I've given you a very clear overall picture that this is in the mountain, and therefore in the mountain rules in terms of what to expect in general about terroir apply. So you have these vegetal clusters, and over the years, they've gone to market. Farmers have named them one thing. People in the research institutes, if they're aware of them, may have named them something else. And in here, we name them yet something else. Just because these clusters or samples of these clusters have been collected and sent to the research institute doesn't mean that the farmers stop harvesting and that they stop producing. No, that's never been the case. They continue to produce. This is about classification and trying to get more accurate information. But all of you over time that have come through this shop looking for exactitude of answers, looking for, oh, okay, I see you have Golden Goddess in here, or I see you have compassion in here. What can I go to another tea shop and find that's like compassion? The answer is, I don't know, because it's a cluster. And everybody who's receiving that, of which there are very few in the US, they don't know. They can't know. Now, obviously, the most famous things they can know, but the ones that are smaller varietals, these clusters, they don't know. Even the experts, they're not perfect. And normally the experts in China are so perfect, it's frightening. That's how good they really are. But when it comes to this isn't a question of good or not good. Oh, yes, those experts are real good. However, the problem's complexity is really enormous. And the exposure to all the elements is still a mystery. You would think, and I know that this goes through people's head. Now let's see, what year is it? 2024. And we have AI, which has discovered everything. And pre-AI, humans discovered everything. And in the midst of those humans, you have scientists who analyzed everything. And then in the future, you've got Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek, who's got the magic machines to analyze everything. Sorry about that. That's not accurate. I know that that's the trap we fall into because we are really good and we do understand a lot, but we don't know everything. And this is a startling area of where there's big holes in our overall comprehension. Now, the Chinese are working on that. At some point, they will know, in quotes, everything. Today is not the day. And hence, this is why, as we go through the cliff teas, you have such magical journeys. The cliff teas, well, let's back up. At Sophie's, every journey is a magical journey. But the cliff teas are imbued with additional magic because we don't have full history about that. So for example, some varietals which seem to historically have originated in southern Fujian somehow made it to northern Fujian and somehow aren't in southern Fujian anymore. How's that happen? We don't know, but we know it's happened. So this is, you can't blame anybody for the state, so to speak, of the tea industry when it comes to understanding or uniformity. I mean, again, we like to classify everything and have a uniformity here and a uniformity there. No, yes.
Is climate resiliency part of what is on the Institute's mind when they are examining these different varietals?
That's a really, really interesting question. Is climate resiliency, and we'll have to answer two parts of this question, on their mind as they're examining these different varieties? Well, first off, is there any such thing as climate resiliency? And today, in this period of changing climate, we're seeing there is not climate, in quotes, resiliency. However, I know what's implied by this question, which is, are the scientists trying to preserve what they understand and preserve what they are seeing today so that they'll be able to describe that for future generations? And I would say in general in China, that's been a huge push since the 1980s, a huge push to not only describe processes, but to assign importance to those processes. In other words, the first iconic cultural, what do they call this? The cultural, oh, yes. It's the non-physical cultural attribute. So it's a process. The cultural process of cliff teas was preserved in 2006, identified and preserved. So remember, I told you that they have these icons all over China who represent lineages, who represent fountains of information about a particular type of tea or about a particular type of process. They've filmed, they've interviewed, and they have created a library of this. This is the National Academy of Sciences, and they're cultural icons. But these aren't tangible in the sense of it's not an archaeological site. It's a cultural site in a person's head. It's a process in a family's head or in a region's head. Well, Scarlet Row started that off in 2006. That was the first one that started this library. And since that time, there's been a rush to capture all these other iconic processes, particularly yellow tea. I told you about some of the green teas. So yes, there is this sense that let me capture the process for posterity. So we'll always be able to look backwards and say, hey, here's how it was. Maybe our conditions have changed, but here's how it was. And here's how the process was. And again, maybe our conditions have changed. So from that standpoint, that's what they're doing right now. And just like with the archaeological digs, what brilliant thing did they do in China with that they're doing with these cultural icons? Well, they know the location of some tombs, but they only gradually unearth those tombs. Why? Because every year the technology to preserve, protect, and make sure you don't damage this really precious, significant history improves. And so the Chinese have very methodically, so I told you that there are 1,000 of these vegetal clusters, 70 of which have been distinctly pointed out as, hey, these are separate. These have their own identities, and here's what they are. We've sequenced them, and here's what it is. but they have much more to do. And again, tea is still being produced from these. In some cases, it's one bush. In some cases, 5 or 6 bushes. So this is all over the map. And that's why you have such little understanding in the tea world about this whole process. I mean, everybody understands, you know, there's 25 to 30 steps in doing cliff teas. Yeah, I've said this to you about 10,000 times. I've said, you know, for the iconic process of scarlet robe, yeah, you can't pick the original bushes anymore. You combine hybridized teas, and if it's within the mountain, you're going to get a certain flavor profile versus outside the mountain. I've said all these things before, but I've not talked about these vegetal clusters, non-glamorous. How can I lead with vegetal cluster? I just did today. And this is why, because now this gives you total context. And when we're talking and looking for unique teas, and by the way, why am I talking to you about this today? Because we're right in the midst. We've almost finished this year's samples. Oh, we're excited. There's some great things that we're going to end up getting. The scientists focus on these within the mountain because this is where they know they're going to get the most interesting stuff, because they currently get the most interesting stuff. Most interesting flavors. Are all the vegetal clusters interesting in terms of flavor profiles? I have a feeling. Now, this is conjecture. What I'm about to say is not a fact. I have a feeling that they quickly, and the they being the scientists and tasters and so forth, classified, went through, did minimal processing, drank, and said, let's segregate these, triage these. These things seem interesting in this order. And I have a feeling that that's how they've gone about working on these. And again, that's why as new stuff comes to light, it's not at all surprising, because sometimes a varietal will disguise itself. What do I mean by that? You first drink it, oh, well, this is okay. Then the next sip, wait a minute. Hey, you who are sitting next to me, did you just put something in here while I was looking the other way? This tastes different. And then you go down further. More tastes different. Yes.
Can you identify any oolongs in the shop that have any of these newer varietals in them?
There are quite a few of them. So compassion was not an accent when I picked that out. Orient Crest is not an accent when I picked that out. They're all over the boards, and it's not just one or two. And again, that talks to you or addresses how common this is, but how hard it is in the tea market to really identify. And it also addresses the fact that we're buying at this extremely high level. And so what you're tasting is is tea from this extremely high level, done by these great farmers. Now, I'm talking about tea, and I use the word, and I shouldn't have, because now that excited thirst and anxiety over when am I going to get to enlightenment? I'm looking for enlightenment today, not next week. I'm looking for it today. And I agree. I'd like you to have enlightenment today. So it is with great pleasure that I bring the enlightened tea master wearing fiery red, full of energy and knowledge and great technique to brew enlightenment.
Hello, hey, good morning. 你好，早上好，早上。So we do, it's not right. Yeah. So we do Wulong Enlightenment. So yeah. This is the, you know, everybody know this is the my tea tree. You know the yeah. Okay, so right now, oh. So this I prepare, you know, the each, you know, the 5 grams.
5 grams.
So how many minutes? 2 minutes.
2 minutes, 20 seconds. Per
Oh, yeah, this is the, yeah, maybe, yeah, I do first.
That's if you have niching pot. If it's a ceramic pot, it's 3 minutes, 30 seconds. So the normal tableau, niching pot is what she's going to use. 2 cups. She's going to make a couple cups. Timer, 2 minutes, 20 seconds, because we're using the Ishin clay. And the water temperature will be 200 degrees. And you're going to notice something right away. When she prepares the Ishin pot, she's going to prepare not only the inside, but the outside. Cliff teas, oolongs in particular, like high heat, concentrated heat. And so preparing outside and inside of an Ishin pot will get that for you. Making sure that the pot is absolutely clean. And by clean, I don't mean that our pots ever get dirty, because we only brew cliff teas in these. However, what does happen occasionally is a leaf will stick inside, either to the lip or to the screen inside. We want to make sure we catch those. So she sees the inside and the outside, putting the 5 grams in the pot. Remember, she's going to then add 200-degree water. Well, she's going to shake, warm the leaves. It's going to smell. Is this really enlightenment in there? I guess. And she's ascertained, oh, yes, it's really enlightenment. I can't wait to drink this, because I'm looking to be smarter this morning. I'm looking to know more this morning. Maybe I can eventually graduate from understudy to starting teammates. All right. So she puts it in a kettle so that she can control the pour precisely. Fills the kettle, starts the timer, 2 minutes, 20 seconds, and fills the recipient glass. All right. So this is in the mountain. We've talked about things that I've given you more context this morning about clusters, vegetal clusters in the mountain. One of the questions that may be on your mind, which is a really important one, is, are vegetal clusters still being discovered? And the answer is yes, they are. One of the beautiful things about the tea in the mountain is you don't have fields. Unlike India, you go to India, you go to a tea plantation, you look out as far as you can see, and it's clonal tea, row after row after row. I mean, that has its clonal beauty, but that's not the beauty of the Wuyi Mountain tea. The Wuyi Mountain tea is planted around existing nature, and in some cases, through the existing nature. Therefore, Stuff is growing in that existing nature, and sometimes that's where new vegetal clusters are discovered. And that stuff is really, really exciting every time that occurs. So that's why we don't have a finite number yet, because every year, it's just like when a farmer wanders through the forest and sees a tea plant that's unexpected. You collect as a farmer, you take home, you experiment, you process the way you think might be a good flavor. You produce that flavor. Maybe you hit it, maybe you didn't. By location, anything that's discovered, in quotes, within the mountain, they're not going to process it as a white tea. They're not going to process it as a green tea. I guarantee you, they're going to process it as a cliff tea first. And then if they find it's not correct, they'll change. But 99% of the time, it's going to be a cliff tea. Timer is going off. Tea master is pouring. We're going to enter the quality arena. And remember, when we enter that quality arena, what are we doing? We're trying to ascertain astringency. Where does it occur in the mouth? We're trying to ascertain an aftertaste. We're secretly looking at the beauty of this thing. This, by the way, is what yours should look like. And then we want to know about energetics. So the energetics can be a lot of things. Stimulating, grounding, be cooling, warming, a whole bunch of things. We don't have a rule book for that. So if you're looking for me to open to page 832 and tell you, oh yeah, Enlightenment has this energetic, the answer is no. That's never going to happen. Why? Because we're all individually different in terms of how we perceive. So let's go ahead and enter the, no. Remember, you get out your notes, and in a minute, you're going to brew. Take notes, and then enter the quality arena. I'm going to enter the quality arena. And hurry up and see if I can't get enlightened. The first thing to remember about this particular tea is it's brewed at 200 degrees. Therefore, you can only do an inhalation. Very small amount. You don't want to damage your tongue. You don't want to damage the taste buds. At the same time, you want to figure out, is there astringency in this? Where is it? Okay. Am I getting an aftertaste? Yeah, I'm getting a little aftertaste. Do I know the interjects? No, not yet. I'm going to take a second inhalation. And along the way, as I do these inhalations, I'm starting to think about aroma. I'm starting to think about taste. And I'm verifying what I got the first time around in terms of the other things we're looking for: astringency, mouthfeel, aftertaste, and interjects. I'm going to take one more because I'm greedy and I'm in a hurry to be enlightened. Okay, I definitely have a sense of aroma, of taste, starting taste, because remember, this goes through many iterations, and it's your turn to brew. And the tea master will brew with you. You see, she's carefully evaluating that Ishin pot to make sure there's no leftover leaves from this first steeping. Because leftover leaves, what will that do? That will change the flavor. Drawing 200-degree water, making sure that the pot is hot on the outside and the inside. Pouring it into a cup, no wasted water. Double checking to make sure no leaves are in there. Leaves are pretty sneaky. They're not inherently sneaky or not sneaky, but they can get caught in places where it seems like they're sneaky. Make sure that you get them all out. Bag number 3, you're opening, you're putting in whatever tea vessel you're making the tea in, you're shaking, you're smelling. That's the first part of your evaluation. You already get a sense of what this tea might be like. Tea master is drying 200-degree water. She's putting it in the kettle so she can control the pour. Still making sure the outside is hot. Pouring on the inside. And that's why she put it in the kettle to control the pour. Covering it up, hitting the 2 minutes, 20-second timer. All right. And you all, once you start this process, should remember to make sure that you have your notes out from the previous 2 weeks. Because we started out with Golden Osmanthus, Southern Fujian. We moved to Northern Fujian, the birthplace of Cliff Tea. But instead of starting in the mountain, we were half in the mountain. Now we're in the mountain. And so each step, as we get closer to more and more famous or championship teas, of which you'll be experiencing the next 3 sessions. Each step as we go through, the quality, yes, the quality is a step up. Location is part of it. But more important than location, it's farmer. Because at the end of the day, if you every year, say, have 3 acres, eighth of an eighth of an acre, and you're processing each one of those differently depending on the terroir, because these aren't contiguous. Most of the time, they're spread all over the darn place, really hard. But because they are different varietals, they're also coming to picking time at different times. So that's helpful as a farmer. You go out there, you evaluate, oh, let's do this field first. And this field is this particular varietal. And it tends to be earlier than later. Yes.
Rob says the amber color of the tea leans more yellow than red, almost like a brown mustard.
Oh, this is interesting. So Rob's opening line about Enlightenment is about the color. And he notes that the yellowish tinges are more pronounced than the red tinges or the brown tinges. And almost like a light brown mustard. So I like the fact that Rob is thinking about all the elements of the quality arena. What is the color? That in itself is not quality or non-quality, but the fact that it's so clear is part of the quality. It's not cloudy at all. And that's one of the things you'll notice. All right, timer has gone off. Now this is 200-degree tea. So therefore, you have to be careful. You can't just bolt down. So we have this person who came in, brand new person, Oh, yes, I'm an expert in Wulong teas. Oh, okay. I love having experts because, you know, I'm an understay, so I need education all the time. Serve this tea, and because I temporarily was insane and went blank, I forgot to remind this expert that it was 200-degree tea. And so this expert took a mouthful and right away rejected the mouthful. So I'm reminding all of you who are the 1%ers or the 99%ers that this is really hard. It's an inhalation. And that before you create a final judgment about this tea, you need to understand there's going to be layers in this tea. Some of the layers for some of the cliff teas are consistent from beginning to end. So a Mortal Guardian is more or less consistent from beginning to end. Some are not. Regal starts at a certain place, moves to another place. What? There's a third floor on this building? And just keeps throwing you little surprises and changes. Beautiful, beautiful teas. Both are beautiful teas, different reasons. This tea will take you to a couple places, but you gotta take good notes because, like I said, in the next 3 sessions, we're gonna have championship teas. And these will distinguish particularly the farmer's skill. It's not so much about the hybrid because you can get teas that have more of a single note, but in the hands of a championship farmer sing. We tasted one of those already in our samples this year. And we're excited about that particular tea because it's more typically a single note, but this farmer has done a lot and it's producing a number of things. Yes.
Peter shares the roasting smell in the dry leaves gave way to something in the wet leaves, which then gave way to something much different in the first sip. I'm still figuring it out. It seems to me the drying aspect of the tea hides a bit of florality, question mark?
So I love this comment and question by Peter because he captured my immediate feeling when I entered the quality arena. Oh, this smells a little chocolatey. I tasted it. Oh, wait a minute. That's not chocolate. There's other stuff going on in there. And for me, you know, Peter is suggesting I'm not sure what that flavor profile is, and ask maybe it's florality. Now, remembering genetically we're all different. So what I'm going to say is instead of yes or no, I'm going to say what I captured a little bit at the beginning was a slight hint of cacao, of chocolate, just a slight. It's not, you wouldn't serve this to somebody, oh, this chocolate. No, that's not what I meant. It was just in the subtle background. So Peter is absolutely right. There's stuff going on. And as it cools, some of that stuff is going to come to the surface and we'll all understand it better. Yes.
Rob says the scent of the tea water has a very bright sweetness that's like honey, plum, corn, and a bit of cherry that's a bit caramelized.
I love this comment by Rob, and I'm going to refer back to Peter because I think that these two are connected in an important way because Peter talked with the question mark, a hint of florality. Rob dove straight in to the tea water and talked about the scent of it. Sweet, cherries, plummy, honey. And remember, when we start talking fruit and honey, we can also start talking floral, can't we? Because we use different language to identify the same thing. We are not so genomically different that we're tasting it differently. What it is we use different words around a same feeling that we're getting from it. And I think that Rob and Peter's are closely connected because, again, I didn't pick up plurality, but as soon as Rob reminded me, well, smell the darn water, tea water. And it's like, oh, yeah, there is a bunch of stuff going on here that I can smell. I tasted instead of smelled. And what a great single by Peter and then a follow-up by Rob. Great pair.
Andy says, initially, this has some of the honey sweetness of Golden Buddha, but quickly gives way to more intense licorice and dark chocolate flavors. And then the roast and minerality don't stand out from the other flavors, but instead meld with them.
Love Andy's comment. Gosh, all three of you, just one after another. This is great because it shows you're all listening to each other as well. So Andy's comment, let's start at the conclusion because the conclusion is just brilliant. A melding of the roastiness with the chocolate, hints of dark chocolate, hints of licorice. Oh my God, what a great description of this, especially as you link it with the initial question, plurality, and then honey, sweetness, plummy, cherry in the tea water, and then the taste of, yeah, there's charcoal, but that dissipates seemingly, and you get the dark chocolatey, and you get the licorice, and wait a minute, that roastiness melds with everything. All of you are on the money with this tea today, and this is how I always know I'm talking to the 1%ers, because you are so good.
Peter says, I'm going out on a limb here, or I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that there's the barest slightest hint of tartness in the cherry.
Oh, this is interesting. So this is a comment, a further comment, referring back to Rob's comment about cherries and thinking about, we all have a different interpretation of cherry. And it's really interesting that Peter talks about just the hint of slight tartness. And what made me think of slight tartness in Rob's comment wasn't the cherries, but because for me, when I taste plums, I frequently taste a subtle tartness. And I think if that's what you're referring to, Peter, this is, again, straight on the money. This is consistent with what everybody is noticing. And you're using the right language because you didn't say sourness, because it is not at all sour. So anybody who's thinking of saying sour, don't do that. But tartness, a slight hint of tartness. Yes, there is something which is making, tartness is what makes it jump out from among the other tastes. Yeah.
Jenny says, like the tartness near the peel of a plum.
I love this. God, you guys, you're the 1% of the 1%. The tartness near the peel of a plum. And this is the exact correct description. My description, you're making me look bad, which is great. My description was inaccurate because when I talk about plum, that's precisely what I was referring to, the tartness of the peel, not the inside fruit of it. The inside fruit of it is not tart. It's usually sweetish. And that peel, though, is slightly tart. Great catch on that, Jen. Better use of language. I love the fact that we're zeroing in ways that we can all understand and identify with. And this is what entering the quality arena is like in China. You stand around or sit around with these experts in China who have years of experience. And this is how they narrow down or zoom in, so to speak, on what the flavors are. Great, great job. I am, let's see, how am I doing? Oh, I'm doing just on time. Okay. I like being just on time. What can I say about all of you that I haven't said? I have to say you're a remarkable group because you went from Golden Osmanthus, you compared clearly with Golden Buddha, this tea, and you noted, Andy in particular made that comparison and noted the further complexity of this. And I love the fact that you are taking good notes, and I love the fact that you're looking back. What you have next week, in fact, the next 3 weeks to look forward to, is an incredible set of new teas, all of championship caliber, that are going to give you new context to what's possible within the Cliff Tea realm. Great, great job today. You know, here's how I got enlightened today. You know, usually I think it's the understudy. Yeah, I kind of teach you. Well, today's enlightenment for me was, no, that's not how it works. They teach me. You teach me. And I now have learned another step. I'm still not a tea master yet, but I have gained another step. So I guess I'm understudy two. I've gotten to the second tier of understudy. Yes.
Very nice. So your wisdom has gone out. That's nice. Excellent.
Is that a Dylan comment?
Yes, yes, I'm figuring you're strong on Constitution.
Yeah, okay. A little weak on that.
Robbie says, just one last comment from the participants. This discussion reminds one of the importance of the pith in Chun Qi. I hope I said that right. And
yes.
How that imparts a deeper layer of power to the strength of immunity offered by the tea.
So Robbie's comment is a very technical comment about Chinese traditional medicine. And when tea is infused with a certain varietal chunpi, there is a obvious health benefit and also a benefit in terms of energetics. And so love that you made that comparison, Robbie. Love that this group is so zeroed in on these teas. Yes.
Okay. Jenny says, so a silly analogy for the scent. The jammy, tart, sweet cherry scent under the floral vividly reminds me of Danish breakfast pastries that commonly get served in office meetings and continental breakfast. I just can't get it out of my head.
Oh, this is really this is a fun comment. This is a very fun comment because I know exactly what Jen is talking about. You go to an upscale hotel and you have a meeting and they serve these Danish pastries, and she's really referring to the cherry Danish. And you take a bite of that and you have, if it's well done, what you have is that hint of tartness on top of the flavor and then the sweetness. Great, great comment. All of you. My God, I bow to you. I salute to you. I can't wait till next week because maybe your commentary will teach me to get to level 3 of understudy. Your responsibilities this week. All of you have the responsibility. Stay healthy. I can't wait till next week. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye now.
Take care, everybody.